The Front Office Sports Today with Renee Washington. I'm Baker Machado, and the Knicks have pretty much shocked the NBA world, Renee, going up 2-0 already on the Boston Celtics. And the Celtics heading into the offseason have a lot of big questions headed their way, especially with this proposed new sale of the team basically happening and being finalized any day now. So for that and so many other big questions we have about NBA rosters, let's bring in our friend ESPN's Bobby Marks for more on this. Bobby, good to see you. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
So let's just say hypothetically, Boston does in fact lose to in this series to the Knicks. They have the highest payroll going into the offseason. They've got this proposed acquisition at almost $6 to $7 billion happening. What happens to the Celtics?
Yeah, it's funny. Brian Windhorst my colleague was on Get Up this morning, and he was talking about it. And he's like, hey, they've got this $400 million payroll potentially. And I'm texting him while he's like on camera. I'm like, it's actually 465 right now. Listen, they are, we're going to see how much teeth this collective bargaining agreement actually has. And I think it's going to be a pretty big bite here. Where Boston is. Remember, we're entering year one with the Jason Tatum Supermax. The extension for Derek White will kick in, and you already have Jaylen Brown on a Supermax contract. Their payroll, if they keep this roster, will be the biggest in NBA history. It'll look like the Los Angeles Dodgers. It will be over $500 million. They have a change in ownership. Certainly, they're still waiting to get approved. If this was 2015 Golden State or the Clippers and we're operating under a different collective bargaining agreement, I would say it's sustainable just based on where the rules were. Under this collective bargaining agreement, it's not sustainable. So I'll give an example. We've thrown around the word the apron as far as how the apron rules impact teams. Boston is a second apron team this year. They're going to be a second apron team next year. The ability to add players in a trade. You can't combine salary sent out in a trade. You can't take back more money in a trade. You can't buy draft picks. Your first round pick 7 years out becomes frozen. So if you're the Boston Celtics, your 2032nd pick is frozen because you're an apron team this year. Your 2033rd pick will be frozen also. Whoa. So basically, and their current owner, Wick Grossbeck, has come out and it said it's not about the luxury tax. It's not about spending $280 million more in luxury tax penalties. It's the ability to add outside of your own roster. And I think the players that we'll keep an eye on certainly is Kristaps Porzingis, who's about to go into the last year of his contract. Drew Holiday, who has 2 years left on his contract. Al Horford, who's going to be a free agent. And here's how much financial savings they could have. Last year they signed a player, Sam Hauser, to an extension for $40 million. If you traded Sam Hauser this offseason, that would save you $80 million just by removing his salary.
That's crazy.
So there are going to be some significant decisions that Brad Stevens, their head of basketball operations, is going to have to make this offseason.
Yeah, and the Cavs are in a similar situation, not just because they're also down 0-2, but also because of roster constraints. But what we're seeing right now, Bobby, is that having the highest payroll, by no surprise, doesn't always correlate to wins, success, period. Look at Phoenix, look at the Bucks. So, in your opinion, just looking at the current CBA, which team do you feel like is best positioned in terms of roster moves and acquisitions to really take a leap in this offseason?
I think Oklahoma City still, because and they're going to be faced with some decisions also. But I think where the Thunder are, how they've been able to build their roster, and they're going to listen. They might commit $800 million this offseason to Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Jalen Williams, and Chet Holmgren. And people are going to say, like, well, how could they do it? Well, they can do it because they basically have balanced the rest of their roster as far as when their contracts expire. So if you're looking at Isaiah Hartenstein, his contract expires when year one of the Gilgeous-Alexander extension hits. The beauty with Oklahoma City is how many draft picks they have. They've got the 15th pick in the draft from Miami. They've got a pick in the 20s. They potentially could have the Sixers first if it falls out of the top 6. And there's more coming. So when you look at, yes, their roster is going to be expensive, but you can also build out the rest of their roster on these really inexpensive contracts. When one player gets expensive, that player goes, and then you have the 10th pick in the draft because you still have picks coming from the Clippers, Utah, Denver. I mean, there is a litany of draft picks here. So I would say if you're trying to build a roster and thread the needle, it's probably how Oklahoma City has done it. That's a challenge, though. I mean, there's really only one Oklahoma. And they had to experience 3 years of pain post Russell Westbrook, Paul George to be able to do that.
Yeah, all the more reason I think it's a surprise, but not a surprise that Sam Presti ended up winning, Executive of the Year. I think the surprise was that he hadn't won it before. Correct me if I'm wrong.
18 years.
No, what Sam has this trait that it's hard for general managers to know when it's time to move on from players. And what he was able to do, he knew it was time to move on from Russell Westbrook. He knew it was time to move on from Paul George. A lot of general managers aren't willing to do that, basically rip. And I've been there before, basically kind of rip the Band-Aid off and maybe take a step back or two. The Clippers did it with Paul George. They knew it was kind of the move, and they got criticized mightily for it. They said, how could the Clippers, who have James Harden and Kawhi Leonard, and they've surrendered so many draft picks, and they've got the wealthiest owner in the world, how could they give up Paul George? And they said, we can't because of the apron, because of the CBA rules. And can we turn Paul George into Derek Jones Jr. and Nick Batum and Chris Dunn? And you basically take that contract and split it up into 4 or 5 players here. So yeah, it's what Oklahoma City's done is really great. Houston is another one of those teams that I basically call them, they've got the 3 things if they do want to go out and chase a superstar with draft picks and controllable contracts and young players.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, last question for you, about 30 seconds left for this one here, Bobby. This playoff feels deeper than what we've seen in postseason history. Do you think the closeness and the parity of the league is a result of the CBA and its impact on rosters?
I do. I mean, let's just look at the Western Conference. I mean, certainly you remove Oklahoma City originally, but the teams from that 2 to 7 range, there was really no separation at all. I mean, the Lakers losing as a 3 seed really wasn't an upset just based on how good Minnesota had been towards the end of the year here. So I do think the parity part is certainly a relation to this collective bargaining agreement.
Yeah, really fascinating stuff. Bobby, always a pleasure to have you here working with us at Front Office Sports. Thank you so much for joining us. Hey, guys, we got a lot more NBA coverage coming up, including the most expensive tickets you can get courtside for Game 3. That's after this.